Hey, attention all planets in the Solar Federation.
So,
we are cranked and ranked, and we have assumed control of your eyes and ears for right now, or maybe just your ears if you're listening to this as a podcast. But yes,
yeah, we have
new episode of Cranked and Ranked is now, and it is the exciting conclusion to the Rush album ranking trilogy.
I've just thought of something really funny there for a second.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Because I've been doing some listening for the next episode. I'm going to give it away because it'll serve the joke. But I've been listening to so much Public Enemy recently that I just want to chime in to whatever anybody says with a Flavor Flav hype up. Like, yeah! Yo, Chuck, what? It's like intentional planets in the Solar Federation. You heard what he said? Yeah! By the way, we're doing Public Enemy after this. So.
Yeah, we're that's not a joke. We're literally like we're moving from Rush to Public Enemy. So
that motherfucker's not joking.
Yeah, it'll be that'll be fun. But we get to this episode, we get to wrap up Rush. I don't know if anybody's really noticed, but I've had 4 different Rush albums in each episode behind me on the YouTube video. If you're on YouTube, they have never been the same 4 albums. I've been trying to keep it. I don't know, interesting. I know like a lot of people, like if you're watching this on your phone or something, it's like, I can barely even see your face, let alone the albums behind you. But just so you know, I am putting in the effort. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Everyone. But yes, this is going to be
me with my,
you're in transition
looking house.
you're having a transition, not to a woman, but you're to a new house.
Who's to say?
I think that you'd be a pretty doable woman if you really wanted to do it.
I'm actually gonna, and I'm probably gonna regret this. There is a photo somewhere of me after a girl did my makeup before I had all this facial hair, and I must admit, I would.
Yeah, it must be nice because I look more. I'm like worse than this without the beard and everything. So it's like there's no saving me.
Contouring does wonders, my friend.
Yeah. This is going to be the top 6 Rush albums. So if you're joining us for the first time just because you want to hear the tops, we did 19 all the way down to 7 in the last 2 episodes. Now this is it. This is the final 6 of Rush. A band that I've been sort of, looking forward to doing ever since we started doing this podcast, and now we're pretty much going to be done.
Yeah.
And it's a little sad, but is what it is.
I mean, we'll have the live albums eventually because we're gonna start ranking some live albums at some point. I think that's something we'll start this year.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm not against doing a live album rank, especially a band like Rush that's got several to rank. I mean, but especially like when you're dealing with live albums from the 70s and I guess a little bit in the 80s, because to me they were way more of a big deal. Like it was a big release. I guess for some bands a live album is still a big release, but for bands, Rush, Aerosmith, what have you, like they put out live things and it was like, oh, this is a big deal. Go buy this live album. I guess because there was no internet. And if you were going to see live footage of a band, it was on Don Kirshner's rock concert or some shit, or what is it? What's the equivalent over in England? There was a show where they showed live footage of bands in like the 70s and 80s.
There was the old Grey Whistle test.
Yeah, that's probably what I was thinking of.
Yeah, and then you got Top of the Pops, but that was more.
That was lip syncing.
Yeah, exactly.
Or not really lip syncing. They would do that thing where they do have the band mime, but have the singer sing, as we've seen with the Nirvana footage where
the lights out, it's the stage.
Also, I guess sometimes the band doesn't mind miming the whole entire thing, because there's like a footage of like the Smiths on top of the pops, and he's just fucking lip syncing away.
Yeah.
He's like, he doesn't care. He's just like, just make sure I've got plenty of flowers in my back pocket.
Morrissey on a hillside desolate.
Oh man, will nature make a man of me? Yes.
We had this. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this on the show. We had a running gag back in high school where I would just walk past all of the girls in like an art lesson, because all the art girls across the board were just Smiths fans, and we would we would just walk past the door. Heaven knows I'm miserable now. And they would be like, "Shut the fuck up! Morrissey doesn't sound like that. You're doing it right." It's like, fuck off. Yeah, he does.
I mean, you're not far off, but I'm actually a Smiths fan. I'm not really a Morrissey fan. I like some of his early solo stuff. There's just a few songs here and there, but they're always the ones that just have kind of the weird, quirky lyrics. Like that's the only thing I like about them, like just his quirkiness. But it seems like years went on and his quirkiness kind of went away, and he just seems like an old curmudgeon now. But anyway, that's for a different episode. That's for the Smiths ranking episode, which at this point, I don't see why it wouldn't happen at some, maybe a couple years from now, we rank the Smiths albums. Anyway, all right.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about the Smiths or Morrissey. We're talking about Rush.
Yes.
And so the top 6, starting with number 6 down to number 1, the big old number 1. This is interesting because, like other people have been commenting on the videos and whatnot, like their picks, and you're right. Like it is all over the place. Like albums that you would think would be in the top 5 for sure. For some people, they're in the middle. And so I guess the same, for you had albums in all over your list that are going to be in this episode for me.
I think, Rush are a band, again, they are one of those magical groups where it's quality and quantity. So there's just a shitload of great stuff. Not a lot of bands have that, but this is one of them. So
let's jump into it. Let's get this the final chapter of the trilogy, which we're not going to fuck it up like some people do and start making other movies or special editions of this trilogy. It's just going to be this trilogy, and that's it. Actually, no. If we do the live albums, I guess that's a standalone. It's a standalone movie of the live albums of Rush. But right now, the canon of trilogy is it ends here. Okay, with the fighting bears and Jabba the Hutt and all that stuff.
Smashing a giant robot between 2 fucking logs.
Oh yeah, that was great. I mean, it's like that's a really, honestly, like the ending of that movie, the final little thing between the Emperor and Luke with Darth Vader, that whole it's pretty fucking great. Like that whole, like, it's not an incredible fight, but just the I don't know,
the build up to it and how it finally pays off, It's...
And I remember when I was a little kid, you get to that point where Darth Vader lifts up the Emperor and throws him. I mean, I was just like, oh, like it was just like, that was one of the coolest fucking things for me. So anyway, so this is going to be that kind of episode, folks. Eventually one of us is going to lift the other one up, and it's going to be you. You're going to lift me up and throw me into a bottomless weird thing on a spaceship. Like, why was that even there?
Yeah. Honestly, I like the amount of times I have watched Star Wars just to point out like health and safety regulation failures.
There's a whole lot of things to fall into, and
one of my favorite like Star Wars logistics memes I've ever seen before I get into the album is that there's that that bit in A New Hope where that dude is like, he's got this like scanner gun sort of thing that he follows an X-wing down with, and he's like in this little solo cup on top of a pipe, and like someone pointed out, like, so does he have a toilet in that thing, or does he just like drop logs over the side? How the hell does he get up there? How does he get back down? Like,
That's a good, yeah, that's a good point. I love how we've had a tangent and we haven't even started ranking anything.
That's a sign of a good episode. Hell
yeah. Yeah. If you're new, this is how we roll. So but let's jump into it. Number 6, your number 6. I'm giving it to Eddie Sparxx, as we always do, because I'm a man that loves a schedule. So I like keeping things going the same way every time. So Eddie Sparxx, what is your number 6 Rush album?
My number 6 Rush album is a Rush album that I believe is underrated as a result of being, a little bit different. But it is the self-titled debut.
All right. I forgot that you hadn't talked about this one yet. Wow, the debut. We have a Neil Peartless Rush album in the top 6. Look at that.
And my reason for that is I just have a major 70s hard rock boner when I listen to this album. Because I think, oh, hell yeah, this stuff this kicks ass. And it's like, I'm glad Neil Peart. You can't get me that time. I corrected myself real quick. 5-second rule, like I said last time. But yeah, John Rutsey is on drums on this one. And it is sort of a different thing. I mean, the hard rock basis of what they were going to do is here, but it's not really the proggy stuff only really happens maybe even in Working Man. Aside from that, it's a pretty straightforward 70s hard rock album. But I like straightforward 70s hard rock albums. So, Finding My Way, excellent opener, excellent.
That is a really good album opener right there.
Yeah, like that band, and then when it kicks in, just what a way to blow the doors down. It's like we're here. I mean, I think even the album art reflects that, it's just like a giant Rush logo just bursting out of nowhere. And it's like, hell yeah. Need Some Love is like Montrose levels of kick-ass 70s hard rock.
Yeah, that song is a good example of why Geddy Lee needed some help with the lyrics. Because it's just like the chorus could have been fleshed out a little bit more than that. Because it's just, oh, I need some love. I need some love. Okay, you need some love. All right, you could have written like another line there, but okay.
Yeah. Take a Friend, a cool song. The vocals
once again lyrically, take a friend, something till the end. It's like, all right, he didn't even try. Didn't even try, Geddy.
I love though, like it's a cool song, like I say, but like the vocals are mixed very high in the mix of this song, and when I cranked it up, I'm like, "Fuck yeah, Alex, tear that shit up!" But then Geddy Lee comes back on the mic, and it startles the shit out of me. like I have to be ready with the volume knob because it's like, okay, he's coming, he's going, whoop, oh hi, there you are.
That's like me when I watch any modern movie. Because I am not one of those people. I don't give 2 shits about 5.1 or surround sound or any of that shit, because that is ridiculous. And so but every fucking movie seems to be mixed for somebody to have that kind of weird sound system. So what do? You put on a new movie and the dialogue is like this, and then the music and explosions are like 1,000,000 times louder, and I'm just like, come on. Like the average movie watcher doesn't have that kind of equipment. Just start mixing the movies where everything is fucking even. It's just give it some good dynamics where not everything is the same level. But I mean, what year is it that they can't fucking mix movies to where the sound is not gonna fucking kill you if you have the wrong speaker setup? Like, that's just ridiculous. Anyway, sorry, rant's over. But I hate that. I hate it so much.
It's cool. It's good to get things off your chest.
Yeah,
he's just saying what we're all thinking. People.
One of these days, somebody that's involved in sound design or mixing in the film world is going to see this episode and go, "He's got a point," and then the world's going to change for the better.
Yeah. Here again is a big old slow song. Track 4. Track 4 is the optimum slow song placement. Tried and true track pacing right there. Then you get What You're Doing. This could have been a Black Sabbath song.
I like that.
Straight up. Yeah, like the.
I mean, it does. I mean, I'm pretty sure that is a Black Sabbath riff, but maybe they hadn't. Maybe I almost feel like, what year was this album? Maybe they did it at the same time. I don't know.
Would have been 74. So Sabbath already had like.
I feel like that's a riff that's on one of the first two albums, so that's very similar to that. I might be. Probably. I don't know. Yeah,
just at a slightly different tempo.
Sure. Yeah,
probably. But God, In the Mood could have been a Kiss song. It's great.
Yeah,
and like that's the thing with this album. People turn around and say like it's derivative, or it sounds like a bunch of other bands. It's like, yeah, it sounds like Rush doing a bunch of other kinds of 70s rock songs.
Yeah,
but I think they're still very good at it. Like, they do it justice.
It's a great debut album.
And it's Before and After is this nice ballady kind of track that eventually explodes into badass hard rock. And then finally, Working Man. Honestly, I was annoyed at myself that I had deprived myself from this album for so long, because it has exactly what I want from a 70s record. And that's why it's, so high up here, And again, like I say, this album rules. Like, sure, they're still figuring out who they are, and, they haven't gone full prog rock territory yet, but everything on here is solid 70s hard rock. There's stuff that sounds like Zeppelin, Sabbath, Kiss. It's kind of like a 70s rock 101 template,
Yeah. I mean, and that's probably why it's low on a lot of people's lists, because of that fact. Like, it's not a go-to Rush album for a lot of people, because I think when you want to hear Rush, you want to hear a specific sound. If you just want to hear 70s rock and you don't really care, this album is a great one to go for above a shitload of others. Like, that's the thing. Is it like, other debut albums from around this time? This album it blows them out. It blows it out of the water.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is one. It is. And I'm glad that it's here in this episode, because obviously, if this album didn't happen, there would be no other Rush albums. And the strength of Working Man catching on in Cleveland and whatnot, and then their career officially started. And so, it's important to remember that, like, if it's a solid album, may not sound like a lot of the other Rush albums, but at the same time, you could say it's the most important Rush album, because you gotta start somewhere. So
certainly one of them. So yeah, that is my number 6.
Okay, so
I was going to try and be clever there and say something in a foreign language, but I forgot. I was going to do like a Spanish number, but I forgot. Is it seis?
Seis.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I could have done it. Fuck. Damn it. I gotta stop. I gotta stop doubting myself.
So, like, I remember in the first episode when we were doing the bottom 7, I was talking about how difficult it was for me. This was more difficult. Like, doing these 6 albums, was a real headache, because I kept rearranging things. And the really weird thing is, I had an idea of where I wanted certain things to go, but then I moved them in a way where I go, no wait. And I tried something like different that probably a lot of people aren't expecting of me, or of a Rush ranking, maybe a little bit, but I did that, and I went, oh, that feels really nice. And then that was it. I walked away from it. But the one that ends up at number 6 is still one that I go, wow, everything's got to go somewhere. And unfortunately, this one had to go at number 6. A Farewell to Kings from 1977. And we're literally just talking about nothing but fantastic albums that I wouldn't change a fucking thing on any of these albums.
But net.
Exactly. So this is the 5th album that they did, and this album has a really great energy because it's following the success of 2112. And so they know they have a fan base. They now know the record label is behind them no matter what they do.
Yeah.
And so they do this album where they push the prog thing a little bit even further than they did previously. And really, to me, the big reason why this hurts me being at number 6 is because fucking Xanadu is on here, and Xanadu is an amazing song, one of my favorite Rush songs. But while this one is a little bit overplayed, I think Closer to the Heart is a song that gets kind of overlooked in how fucking epic it is in less than 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's less than 3 minutes long. And every time I hear it, it just feels like I've gone on this little journey. But by the time it comes out to that last chorus, or that last verse, I'm just like, how the fuck did they manage to make that kind of feeling in less than 3 minutes? And so that to me is like, that song, it's not just a nice 70s song. That is an amazing song. And not to mention this one, we get Cygnus X1, book 1, The Voyage, which is like, pushing the prog thing, it's a fantastic, we talked about this in the last one. It's a fantastic song. But overall, this whole thing, I like this album so much because it sounds so much like a band riding high and using their own momentum to like fuel like their desire to like do whatever, because it's like they're fully taking advantage of the fact that they can now do whatever they want. And instead of playing it safe, they do something a little more short and simple, like Closer to the Heart, and they do something big and epic, like Cygnus X1, book 1. And it all makes sense on this album.
Yeah.
And that's insane. And they continue to gain fans along the way. So it was like the perfect storm of just like, a band going from thinking that they're going to be dropped and probably break up to all of a sudden being at a point where they're like, not only can we do whatever we want, it seems like all these people are down with this. And that's a fucking, amazing thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they continue to push things forward on this album. I just think that the importance of this album, I was trying to like weigh things on like how great they are, how important they are. And with this one, I think that they were going in a direction, and they get far into that direction, but then they do it even better with the next album. And so that's why I'm like, all right, Farewell can go here at number 6, because another one will go up higher. But they just continue to, if you look at the history of Rush, like all the albums that they put out, you can argue with me about anything maybe after Grace Under Pressure, but from this point on, it's just like, it's like amazing shit. So anyway, all right, that's enough talking about this when we talked about it last episode. So that's my number 6, A Farewell to Kings.
Cool. So we're gonna talk about one now that was talked about pretty late in last episode with Grace Under Pressure at number 5.
I'm so glad. It hurt me to leave it out of my top 6 because this album is so good. So I'm glad it's here for you.
Hell yeah. And you know me, 80s is my era. It's my shit. And right out of the gate, you get Distant Early Warning, which is like way deeper into the 80s, further experimenting with those synths, almost kind of policey, funky rhythms going on. And it is just amazing. I love the video to Distant Early Warning too, with like the kid riding on the missile and the control center, like the command center that they're in playing, and it's really cool. After Image, that the groovy riff with the stabs in there is yummy. Red Sector A, dude, this fucking rules. Like 80s electro toms and dystopian death camp fucking themes. Like, count me in. This is like a fucking dystopian 80s sci-fi soundtrack. I love it. The Enemy Within, again, like I say, gives me kind of like hard rock Police vibes with its kind of reggae skank beat thing going on.
Yeah.
The Body Electric is cool and proggy. Kid Gloves has like a fun odd time bounciness to it.
Yeah.
Red Lenses again has a bit of a funky edge to it. And then Between the Wheels, dude, like, whoa. This is like, you know when you hear like a synthwave song and it's like not guitar led, but it's heavy, and it's like there's something really scary about this song, about like how powerful and pounding it sounds, while not being traditionally beefy kind of heavy, but it's like scary heavy. Yeah, and it's big old epic 80s thing going on. Grace Under Pressure, like, I kind of like when I look at like ranking lists for these like podcasts that we do, because I like to have an idea of what the fan base thinks of the discography, so I can kind of compare my taste to it and see where I agree and like disagree. But like, again, it's a case of some have this high up, some have this way down low, because again, like you said, there's like two Rush camps. There's those who ignore their synth albums and those that don't ignore their synth albums.
I think a lot of people would agree that if you ignore that period of Rush, you're not really a Rush fan. You're just a fan of a certain era of a band. So it's like, that's very different to me. That's like people coming at me saying they're a Metallica fan and they're like, well, they didn't do anything good after Justice. I'm like, well, then you're not a fucking fan, you moron. Yeah. You're a fan of albums, not of a band. So enjoy yourself.
It is a fantastic and criminally underrated record.
Absolutely.
From an amazing band. I mean, all of the stuff on here, I was like crazy impressed with, because like I kind of went into it thinking it was going to be like an even more new wavy Signals, but it went in like a bit of a left turn, adopting more of the like kind of funky reggae Police sort of stuff, while still having that crunchy guitar edge to it at points, you know? And like especially songs like Red Sector A and Between the Wheels, I was really impressed. Like, holy shit. Like there was a very because I was listening to this album while I was packing my drum kit down, because I got a big old drum kit, and there was a moment where it's like he said, "Are we the only human beings left alive in Red Sector A?" I had to stop. I was like, "Motherfucker's spitting fire right now, dude." Jesus Christ. But this album rules.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
Those who discount it are discounting a better life. So
it's true. All we can do is feel sorry for them. All that we can do is wish them well, which is a lyric from a song from an album that I'll get to.
Please pledge £3 a month for people who don't like 80s Rush.
For as little as the price of a cup of coffee, you can help these people out of their boring ass fucking lives. I'm Sally Struthers. All right, on to my number 5. So this is going to be this might I don't really know. This might be surprising to some people, but my number 5 is 2112 from 1976. So we previously I talked about Farewell to Kings, which, you know, came after this album 2112, and this was in 1976. And we've talked about it before, you know, that it was an album that they just said fuck it. It's the ultimate fuck it album by Rush, because they if this had failed, then that would have been it, for at least for that record label. And I mean, maybe they would have been picked up by somebody and maybe they would have continued, but who knows? Maybe getting dropped from a label, maybe they would have just broke up and other bands would have formed. Who the fuck knows what would have happened? But this was that the make or break kind of thing. And we talked about this because we did our top albums from 1976, an episode last year at some point, I think. I don't really remember. But it was in my top 5 of that year. And I talked about how I don't know if for the big old Rush fans out there, they might be able to tell me if this was intentional or not, but I've never read that it was intentional. But to me, a lot of people look at it and go, oh, it's one side of the concept. The other side is just songs. I was like, the other side to me has a concept. Yeah. And I talked about this on that episode. I'll kind of run down what my theory is. So obviously the first side is 2112, which, everybody, if you don't know the story, you're in the future, you're on a planet that doesn't like music or something like shit. And the dude finds a guitar, brings it to the big wigs and says, hey, I found a guitar. And they went, fuck that. And they destroy it. And then there's a battle. And it gets kind of vague at that point. But it lasts for an entire side of an album, and it's a big old epic rock opera, I guess you would say. It's not, it doesn't have that. It doesn't strike me the same way that like Tommy does, where it's like the songs. See, I don't know. That's for a different episode. But it's a concept, and it's very well known, and it's people love it. So then you flip it over to side 2. Side 2 is not related to 2112. But it's 5 tracks. And the more that I listened to that side of the album, I started to like pick up on words that were used in the songs and the feelings of the songs. And I was like, wait, I think that this is what it is. So side 1 is 2112. That's the concept. Side 2, The concept is the band deciding to make 2112. Because like we talked about, hear me out for those of you who are out there listening. So the very first song is Passage to Bangkok. Fantastic song. Yeah. So clearly they're on tour. They're looking for weed. They're like, we got to find the best weed we can find because we want to get fucked up. And then you get to the second song, which is called The Twilight Zone. And you can tell that like now they're high, but they're having these conversations and they've all had an epiphany. They're like, oh, our minds are open now. We know what we need to do. And then the next song, Lessons, it's all about them deciding, look, we're not going to be happy unless we stick to our guns in making this new album. And then you move to the next song, Tears, which is them being realistic and saying, look, there's a possibility that this could totally fail and all of this is over. Let's be real about this. Then they wrap it all up with Something for Nothing, which you can't get something for nothing. You can't have freedom for free. They decided, fuck it, we're taking the chance. We're making 2112. Boom. Two concepts related to each other on the same album. Now, did they intend that? It could just be me being a dork and reading into things, but that's what I do sometimes. But that makes me enjoy the album so much more because it's like, I wouldn't call it a perfect album. There's a couple parts here and there where I go, that could have been done a little bit better, or that line is a little bit cheeseball, but it is what it is. And now it's this snapshot of this band that became a band that everyone's like, fuck yeah, Rush. But at this point it was like, is it going to be fuck yeah, Rush? But they didn't give a shit. They literally just, they were on. Like, how many bands would do that these days? You're signed to a major label with major label backing, and they say, don't do this kind of album again. Most bands would be like, okay. And they would just do whatever the fucking label wanted so they don't lose their paycheck. But
here's 10 3-minute songs.
Yeah. But Rush did not do that. They stuck to their guns. They put out the album they wanted to make, and the rest is history. So to me, that's why it belongs in this episode of the top albums, because even if it isn't one, it's not one that I go to often compared to many other Rush albums. But the importance of the album is insane. Like, it's right next to the first one. They have to do a first album to start somewhere. But then 2112 is the one that literally their career as being a band that has this massive following, and people like you and me that want to talk about them starts with 2112. So that's why it ends up being number 5 in this episode. So yeah, 2112. Let's move on. Man, I'm excited to see where this goes, because I actually forgot like what we've already talked about of yours. So now I'm like, what is going to be here at number 4?
Well, I can tell you, I have some pretty standard picks up here. There might be one.
You and I have at least 2 very standard picks in our top 5.
Yeah. But yeah, so my number 4 is Permanent Waves.
Okay, all right.
So I kind of feel like this is I know Moving Pictures came after, but I kind of look at this as like a sister album to Moving Pictures. Like,
yeah,
you could listen to one after the other, and it'd feel kind of like a double album situation.
It's weird because I keep saying that thing about there being these different Rush eras, but you could almost take these 2 albums, Moving Pictures and Permanent Waves, and that be an era in itself, because they really complement each other in a lot of ways.
They do, because they move away slightly from the real high concept progginess. I mean, they've still got very progressive tendencies.
But like any good band, they said, "Look, we did that shit. Let's move on."
Yeah, let's explore, some shorter songs, some catchier stuff. So yeah, like you said, there's a few pockets of their discography where they have a thing and they kind of play around with that, and then they're like, okay, there's like 2 or 3 albums of that. Let's do something else now. But like, this is a real good middle ground era of Rush, where they're really starting to explore how synths can complement their music, but it's not dominating their music yet. They're still very rock and roll at the same time. And it opens up with Spirit of Radio, which is the first Rush song I ever heard.
Wow, that is an introduction right there.
Yeah, it was on Guitar Hero 5, which is the video game responsible, arguably the most important video game, barring the GTA games, for me becoming a guitarist and a musician and a drummer and all of that.
The one thing I can say about these 2, this album and Moving Pictures, is that they both have multiple songs that the beginning of the song, you would have that meme of the dudes losing their shit when the song starts. Like it doesn't matter how many times I've heard it's still just like, oh shit, it just so blows everything away. Whatever is in my brain gets blown away when that song comes on.
Honestly, like the riff at the start of Spirit of Radio is probably a top 50 riffs of all time.
Also, did you know the leading up to that whole did you know why they do that there?
Why is that?
They literally wrote something so it sounds like you're turning the radio dial. So it's like that was the point of that they did something that's supposed to sound jumbled, like you're going through stations and you're getting to now you hit the song you want to stay on. And that's I know.
We're talking about a group of guys that are on a completely different fucking wavelength to most.
I mean, we talked on the last episode that they're possibly aliens. So
yeah, straight up. I think they crashed in the fucking sea,
or they're just like
out,
or they're like proof that there's time travel, and they literally just came from millions of years in the future, already knowing everything, and they just come and be like, "We got this."
Yeah,
it's almost like the early Rush was like Bill and Ted, and then they got into the phone booth and then went and got really good and then came back.
Yeah. Oh man, like seriously though, Spirit of Radio again is one of those ones where it's like you feel like you've been on a whole ass journey. And it's like what is it, like 4 or 5 minutes long?
Yeah, it's not that long of a song.
No, and
it takes you so many different places. Well, especially once you get to the words of the prophets were written on the studio wall. Once you get to that part, you're like, "What? Where are we?" And then it brings you right back in. It's like, it's amazing. I know it's been talked to death, but it's a fantastic song.
It's also like one of the sassiest guitar solos that they ever did. Like,
dude, yeah.
Like, I love that. And that riff, like I say, the
yeah,
like, it's so badass, man. And that's just one song on this album. Like, right after that, you get Free Will. Like, the marriage of synth and guitar in this.
See, that's another one. It starts and you're just like, clear my schedule. So I'm just listening to this song.
Oh man, like it's magnificent. Like, that's the only word I can think of, Jacob's Ladder.
Oh,
heavy.
Speaking of another riff that's fucking amazing. That's like, god damn. Yeah.
It's like almost a Doom, like, in places with like oh, it's so
fucking
cool.
Great.
It then it kind of like metamorphosizes into this like cerebral prog zone, and it really takes you places, man. Like Entre Nous, I think is how
that's one of those. That's one of those get ready to learn something about yourself Rush songs.
Yes, like I love the vibey guitar parts. They really ring out during the track. Different strings. It's a pretty kind of ballady track.
Yeah.
And then finally, like, Natural Science, you get this 9-minute closer. Like, and here's the thing, right?
You've just listed off a perfect album right there. Just want you to know.
I know. Like, I can definitely hear, and here's the thing. I came to Rush as someone who knows the band.
And then you came.
Yeah, I did many times. This is a good album. What can I say? But, here's the thing, and I want to say this the right way, because I know some people would be like, "Oh, that band's not as good as this band." But here's the thing, right? I can hear how big an influence Rush had on Dream Theater, because this song has a really intense guitar part that gave me straight up John Petrucci vibes, and obviously Rush came along, almost 20 years before Dream Theater. So, but my God, this is like a blueprint for their career,
Yeah.
And it's really cool album, and it's a really cool number 4 album that has 3 really good albums above it, solely out of the thing of personal opinion. But Permanent Waves is fucking incredible.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, a little bit of personal opinion comes into my number 4, because my number 4, I've actually heard people say that they don't really understand why people love this album so much, and that really makes me worried about them as people. But this is also a personal thing, because this is just an album that I put on, and I'm just like, I can't believe this. It blows my mind that they did this album. My number 4 is Clockwork Angels from 2012, the final Rush album, the 19th and final Rush album, and it is fantastic. It's one of those albums that the first time I heard it, there were so many standout tracks, and then over the years, everything else, it just keeps growing to me as an album that I love every time I hear it. And just the fact that they ended on such an insanely strong album, they made one of their best albums, in my opinion, 40 years after their debut album, essentially. Like, how many other bands can you say that about?
Yeah.
Zero. There's zero bands that made an album just as good, 40 years after they started. Like that's insane. And I love how it's it's almost like they're revisiting all of their eras on one album while still presenting something that sounds pretty fresh and modern Rush. It still sounds like a modern, the later day Rush albums, but the songwriting like takes such a fucking huge step up here from what they had been doing that it blows my mind how good every song has some amazing part that I just go that how do they do it? And you take two songs like mid to later way into the album, The Wreckers followed by Headlong Flight are two of my favorite Rush songs. That would be in my top 10 of Rush songs, those two tracks from this album. But those aren't the only killer songs on the album. There's just so much good shit. And also Headlong Flight does have that vibe where it's written like there's a story in this album, but the song Headlong Flight, the way that it's written, it's clearly Neil and maybe the whole band. I don't know what input everybody had on lyrics, but basically saying like, well, this has been a fun ride, right, guys? To the point where they even use the same little accents at the beginning of a certain part that they used. Was it on Anthem? Bastille Day. So they literally take a little chunk of what they did with Bastille Day and put it in this song. And then, once you get to the part where he's like, I wish that I could live it all again. It's a very emotional song for me. Which the album itself already had like a real final kind of feel to it when it came out. But now obviously it's an even bigger emotional ride for me as a fan because it's the last thing that they left on. And it's just this beautiful, fantastic album filled with riffs and tunes and it just gets better the more that I listen to it. And just, I got to say it again, 40 years into their career and their last album ends up in the top 5 of their albums, in my opinion. Like, it's just, if you're on the fence about this album or don't like it, I just give it some fucking time because it is, man, I don't know. Because if you're looking for like the more obviously progginess that Rush would do, then I guess you're not really getting it here. But for somebody like me that I like really great songs. I don't really care if it's a 2-minute song or a 20-minute song. If you bring me something that keeps me engaged and makes me want to come back, then it's amazing. And this whole album is that kind of thing. I always want to listen to it because it's fucking great. And that's why it's my number 4, Clockwork Angels.
Awesome. That could be the biggest gap between album picks we have on our list.
Yeah.
Again, like you said, it clearly is a grower. So it could very easily climb. I don't know why I decided to have a drink there. That was bad pacing on my part.
It's all right. Normally I would jump in and help out, but you mentioned I was just thinking about the album again. I was lost in my thoughts.
It'd be a nice little quiet moment for the viewer.
Everybody have a drink at home. Take a drink of tea or whatever you're drinking.
Stay hydrated, people.
Yeah, it's very important. Like, your body is mostly water. Yeah, you gotta replenish your fluids.
Oh my god, he's squeezing air tits. Cool.
I'm gonna start doing that instead of air quotes. It's gonna be air booby grabs.
Touch the titties.
Some people might not think that this is a good album, but
Crank Direct sued for sexual harassment.
they harassed everybody on YouTube at the same time. All right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And by the way, at the podcast world, I didn't mean to leave you out, but I'm mentally grabbing your boobs as well. Okay.
I'm so fast. Honk honk. There you go.
Man, I didn't even see it. It's like John Cena or some shit going on.
They chased me for a long time, but they didn't catch me.
Where were we? Number 3. We're on number 3.
Number 3. Bronze medal. Bronze medal, people.
Okay.
Okay, so my number 3. Power Windows.
Okay. All right.
And you know why.
I mean, I know, yeah. I mean, I should have known that it would be here.
Like, I thought Grace Under Pressure was 80s. Holy shit. Like, the big money right out of the gate, like those badass Rocky IV brass synths are a yes from me. Like, oh my god. Like, the do like all that stuff going on. Chef's kiss. Grand designs. I love the like whoa section of this song. Very, very me. Reverb, whoa, goodness. Manhattan Project. This would make a crazy good vaporwave song. 100%. Like, that entire genre is based on sampling this exact thing. Like, love that. Marathon sounds like a soundtrack to an 80s movie that I commissioned specifically for Rush to perform. Because, like, you know how people turn around and say, like, oh my god, this song was made for me. This sounds like the sort of thing that I exactly want. Like, this, I was actually listening to this song, and I had kind of a beautiful 80s movie moment where I was actually walking back home, and I just heard it come on, and I was like, I'm gonna fucking run it. Like, and I just started fucking running.
Literally running to marathon.
I just started running, Jenny. But yeah, it's.
I think you should go back to Greenbow, Alabama.
Thought I might try out my sea legs. You ain't got no legs, Lieutenant Dan. That was always one of my favorites.
The war in Vietnam.
Damn!
Let's go watch.
I need to watch.
Fuck this podcast. Let's go watch Forrest Gump.
Top 10 Tom Hanks movies. Tom Hanks. Tim Hanks.
Tom Hanks.
Just imagine if the multiverse theory exists. There's a fucking universe for every variation of Tom Hanks. Tim Honks.
Tim Honks.
Tam Hunks. Like, they've all got different vowels.
Top 10 Tom Hanks is not movies, just top 10 Tom Hanks from the multiverse. If we did top 10 Tom Hanks movies, you know fucking Turner and Hooch is going in that shit.
Oh hell yeah.
He probably I don't know how he feels about it. Big's all right, but you know.
I love Big. Big's great. I'm gonna Tom Hanks binge.
He's a national treasure over here. Like, he's one of the he's the first actor I think I remember where, like, once he got into serious roles, I'm like, really? They're putting Tom bosom buddies is in some serious roles, and then of course now it's just a given. Of course Tom. And then, you know what? I really do hope I don't think they'll ever do it, but it'd be really cool if they did a Forrest Gump sequel based on the other Forrest, because it's based on a book, but the author wrote a second book where Forrest Gump finds out that there's a movie made about him. I don't know the whole story, but in the book he finds out. Yeah. And I don't know the whole story because I've never read the book, but I heard that happens in the book where it's now in a reality where the Forrest Gump movie exists, and he knows that a movie has been made about him. And I'm like, well, that sounds like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, really, but they already made that. Kevin Smith made that twice now, so I think maybe we're good on that.
Oh, dude. Like, imagine being able to turn around and say, I'm Woody from Toy Story and one of the lead guys in Saving Private Ryan. Right?
And I was in a movie where a donkey ate a bunch of cocaine. That was Bachelor Party, folks.
Oh, dude. What a career.
Yeah, I hope when he dies in retrospect, it's going to be all these things like life is like a box of chocolates, and then a shot of the donkey going and falling. Like that. You know what? And Tom Hanks seems like he's got a good sense of humor, so I bet he would probably prefer that too. He's like, don't leave out the donkey ODing on cocaine, please don't.
Just imagine like a crossover of the fucking beach landing, but the donkey is there. And it's fuck, man.
I really hope that I want them to make some really fucked up weird movies, like maybe make a movie where like all of the Tom Hanks movies are in the same universe and all the characters start meeting up with each other. And that, God, man, if I was in charge of making movies, there'd be so many fucking weird ass movies that just are for no reason, just made for me and maybe 10 other people, but it's still going to cost $500 million to make it anyway.
Dude, is there a movie, right? I would actually. Should we be telling people this, or should we just me and you right now, just me and you?
Okay.
Should we have an idea, right? A movie. Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks goes fucking insane, right?
Okay.
And he starts hallucinating.
Okay.
Himself everywhere, but they're all roles from movies he's been in. God. So he's fucking fallen into absolute insanity, where he's talking to, even Woody is there. Woody, right?
Yeah.
He's talking, right?
That alone will cost a lot of money.
Yeah, but it's okay. We'll fix it in post. It's imagine how fucking cool that would be to explore. Like an actor goes mad and hallucinates all of his actual roles that exist out there.
That seems I would go to the theater, and I already really didn't go to the movie theater even before the pandemic, but now I would be like, first night I would be there with all the germ filled people, and I would go see that movie. That's why that's why I think maybe I'm glad that we're on the same page here, because sometimes like movies come out and I'm like, who's the audience? Turns out millions of people want to see another fucking Spider-Man movie, but I'm just like, I don't want to. I want to see Tom Hanks fighting a bunch of other Tom Hankses.
Yeah.
That are all other characters from his movie. Like, that's what I want to see. Quit spending all this money on these other movies and start doing some cool shit.
Hankception.
I have a really great idea for a movie, but I don't ever want to talk about it because I'm afraid somebody's going to take it and run with it, and I'm never going to get any fucking credit for it. So I'm not going to do it here.
And then there's the sequel where he goes nuts again, but this time it's Tom Tanks. So it's an action movie, and everyone is Tom Hanks, but it's a tank. So,
I thought you were going to say like Thomas the Tank Engine. It's Thomas the Tank. Thomas the Tank Engine should be in the Tom Hanks movie too, just because he's Tom Tanks Engine. This is an amazing. So if somebody out there can make movies or knows people who make movies, get us in touch with them and just put us in a room. We're literally sober right now. Neither one of us have had any drugs or alcohol of any kind, and this is the kind of classic shit we come up with. They need to be consulting us for movies.
You know how Thomas the Tank Engine is narrated by Ringo Starr.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's a part in the movie where all of the Tom Hanks tanks, so all of the Tom Hanks, start fighting, and then like Ringo Starr explicitly addresses the audience and says, "I am warning you with peace and love. Shit is getting real."
And then all of a sudden the door busts open and a whole bunch of fucking hot dogs run in, like, we're the Tom Franks.
How the fuck did we get here from Power Witness?
I think it was Marathon. Fucking Forrest Gump. Everything comes back to Forrest Gump in life. You know. I feel like we could go on for hours about that, but I feel like I don't know. Save that for the pitch meeting with us in the studio.
You know how you were saying earlier about how they managed to fit like an epic into like a 3-minute song?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we just did that with a podcast.
Yeah, we did. You're welcome, everybody. We literally should be one of the top podcasts in the world, but whatever. We're down here.
I want someone who's good at graphic design to make a Tom Hanks movie poster.
Don't forget to put the Tom Franks somewhere in the poster.
Yeah, but like subtly hidden as to not give the plot twist away. It's like
that's true. Don't put it on the poster, because I want it to be like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, where you don't expect that awesome shit's going to happen, and then the Tom Franks show up. Oh man, it's going to be a great movie that nobody's ever going to make, and it makes me really sad.
Who's to say? Like, okay. I've just given us like major content fuel. I have a green screen. It's achievable.
The real important question here is, what is it called?
Tom Hanks and Tim Honks is a goose.
What?
And Tim Honks, he's the goose because he honks.
Okay.
And he has to navigate the insanity and try to convince everyone. But he's a talking goose, which is a major obstacle for him. Because, like, he's like, yeah, I can talk. I'm a fucking goose. But nobody takes it seriously because it's like, well, there's a bunch of tanks that are all voiced by Tom.
Do you know that? Just to bring it back to a person that I'm a big fan, and he's inspirational to me in certain ways. But Kevin Smith, you do realize that like what we've just did right here, like Kevin Smith made an entire movie based on the kind of conversation that we're just having, where he was making a podcast. He was high as fuck. We're not high, and they were talking about making a movie where a man makes a walrus suit to put another man in.
Yeah.
And then in the podcast episode, Kevin Smith says, hey, if you guys want us to make this movie, then send out the hashtag walrus yes. And millions of people did, including me. And then he made what I consider one of his best movies. Like if you haven't seen Tusk, god damn, it's like what we're talking about. It's a movie where I go, who was this made for? Clearly it's made for me, because it's fucking weird as fuck and hard to explain to anybody. But it's also very well done. Movie recommendation, Tusk by Kevin Smith, folks. It is a movie. You're either going to love it or hate it, probably. If you love it, then you are correct. So yes. Anyway, back to Marathon. Woo!
Yep. Yeah, I ran the whole way home because that
was like the Cygnus X1 size. Or was it was a 2112. It was an entire side of an LP diversion.
Well, we haven't got to the instrumental part yet.
That's literally when we just sit here and we're just gonna stare at each other for like 20 minutes.
Can you imagine if we did that? Just like the audio, the poor audio listeners don't get shit for like 20 minutes.
It'd be like it's our artistic intent to have 20 minutes worth of silence in this podcast, and don't speed up your damn podcast because you're supposed to enjoy the 20-minute silence starting now.
And there is a fart buried in the mix that you can only hear on the vinyl.
Oh, yeah. And we're going to bury a whole bunch of noises that are going to fuck with your dogs.
Yes. So yeah, Marathon, kick-ass song.
Great song.
That is so good. It made us go on a hallucinogenic rant about Tom Hanks.
I think we're all better people for it now too. So.
Yeah. Man, that was awesome. Yeah, Territories is a cool song. Mm-hmm. Something people often criticize this era for is not being as guitar oriented, but there's a decent amount of distorted guitar in this song.
Yeah, I think the problem is a lot of times the keyboards overpower. You can hear the guitars clearly, but I think the keyboards, they got a little bit too prominent in the mix for some people's tastes. But whatever.
Fair. And that's the thing, just because a band is exploring like different instrumentation, it doesn't take away their other albums. Like, let them do what they want. But yeah, Middletown Dreams has a kick-ass guitar solo in it, and Motion Doctor is vibey, proggy 80s-ness. And then finally you get Mystic Rhythms, which is just epic. This cerebral 80s vibe stuff is ace. And I at the time of writing this, I was listening to a shit ton of vaporwave on the side, and I can categorically tell you that if you played like a single off of this album at like 33 RPM as opposed to the 45, like, it would be vaporwave. Like, I like it, and it's cool album. Fuck yeah.
I mean, apparently very cool. It was your number 3. That's high up there, man. My number 3, this might be shocking to some people because I feel like for many, many, many people, this is probably number 1. But it is my number 3. Moving Pictures from 1981 is my number 3. I don't fault anybody for putting this at number 1 because it is a fabulous album. I started writing my notes, and my notes just say Tom Sawyer, Red Barchetta, YYZ, Limelight. It's like, the first, the whole album's great, but those first 4 tracks are some of the most iconic Rush songs all in a row. Yeah. And once again, those songs that it starts and I lose my shit. They're just fucking amazing tracks. Now, I had to get real nitpicky here. You probably don't care about this, but the camera eye, the synthesizer on that always makes me giggle. And I know that it wasn't supposed to, because it always reminds, because that meow, meow, meow. It always reminds me of like back in the 80s, you would watch like an instructional video and it would be like the future of technology. And the music in the background when I was like, meow, meow. It sounds like that. Like when you see a video about the future, but it sounds very much in the past now. Yeah. Like that's what it reminds me of. It's one of the, and at the time, I'm guessing that sound was very fresh. I mean, I was only 3 years old in 1981, so I don't fucking know. Or 4? How old was I? I was born in 78. You do the math. I'm not a math magician. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cheesy, but I like the song. And honestly, I would say that the second half of the album is not as strong as the first. And I know that's not cool to say because the first half is stacked with radio tracks. But those songs are so strong. I don't care. I don't care how many times I've heard Tom Sawyer 500 times, probably more. Yeah. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. It's just, it still hits me every time how cool the riff, the bass riff of the like that whole, it's fucking amazing. But I love the second half of the album too, but I do think that it loses a little bit of something. I don't know what it is, because I wouldn't change anything about it necessarily, because I love how it plays out and I love how it sounds. But this ended up here because I compared it to its sister album, or whatever you would say. And I basically put them next to each other. And when I went through, which we'll get to later, Permanent Waves, when I went through that one, I was like, every fucking song I was like, fucking banger. Whereas this one, the second half, I start to go, this one's great. So it was a little bit, so all of a sudden I go, all right, well, Moving Pictures has got the importance of this album cannot be argued. It's an amazing album, really big turning point for the band, some of their most iconic songs. But the 2 albums that are above this for me as albums and statements of what they were doing at the time are more perfect than this one. So that's why number 3 is Moving Pictures.
Cool. I think as well, like what you've said about like your music taste is that you like really great songs, and I think the second half of like you say, the second half of the album isn't as radio, and I think yes, because it goes on more of like a vibe kind of
which is not a bad thing at all.
Yeah. Whereas like the first 4 songs of that album are like, these are songs, and they're real catchy songs.
Yeah. I mean, you put anything up against that Red Barchetta, that whole part is so fucking good. I love watching on the exit stage left. There's the live album, but I also have the VHS, and I love watching Alex play that part of the song. Like he just, you can tell that he's like, this riff fucking rules. I'm like, it does, sir. It does. So anyway, but you know what? The funny thing is, if you ever watch anything from that concert, it always makes me nervous because Alex has an actual windy chord from this amp, and he keeps going to the very end of the chord. I'm like, you're gonna knock something over. It's gonna come up. What are you doing? But he keeps coming over to where the thing is like, it looks like it's really pulled really tight. And I'm like, I mean, there had to have been a show where he went a little bit too far, but who knows? Anyway, sorry.
I might have had like a little like duct tape X on the floor to like, this is the limit.
Maybe he did. Like, Alex, do not go past this point.
Yeah.
But you know what? Knowing them, he probably went past it anyway because they're rule breakers.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so now, man, we've now made it to the top two Rush albums. This is getting very close. I know one that you haven't talked about, but now I don't remember what the other one would be. So let's do it.
Cool. So my number 2, 2112.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go. All right.
I mean, this is one of the Rush albums.
Yeah.
It's 2112. It's majestic opener to one of the greatest prog rock compositions of all time, kicking off this album. Like Temples of Syrinx was doing badass 80s choruses years before anyone was doing badass 80s choruses, Mm-hmm. And this is from 76, they go all soundscapey for a bit with some cool like rushing water, pun intended, before exploding into like whimsical yet rocking chord sequences with like plenty of Neil Peart fillage, and then they return to the temple section for this ripping guitar solo. And, again, this song just keeps cementing itself as just fucking untouchable.
Yeah.
And then you get, another kick-ass section before it returns to the soundscapey kind of vibe. And then after that entire side blows you away, you flip it over, and the first thing you hear is ba-da-down, ba-down, ba-da-da-down, ba-down, da-down, da-da-da-da. And it's like,
and that's already cool. That's already cool enough. But then Alex goes up. Is it an octave? And does the? That's not an octave. That's like it's a harmony. That's I don't know. I don't know music terms. Shouldn't even be doing this podcast. Stop listening.
I'm now realizing something.
Yeah.
Did Passage to Bangkok inspire Indians by Anthrax?
Well, no. The beginning of that is supposed to be based on.
What I'm saying is the
Yeah, that I'm pretty sure that
did Anthrax hear it and say down.
I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be based on some sort of Native American music.
Well, either way, both sound fucking cool.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is. It's based on some actual piece of Native American music or the white person accumulation of what they think Native American music is supposed to sound like. you know, but I think that's what it's from. But I mean, you could be right. I don't know. It's just anything's possible, I guess.
Yeah, not saying anybody ripped anything off or whatever. People might turn around and say cultural
So you know
appropriation.
what? It's okay. I have no problem with somebody being inspired by something or two minds thinking of a similar thing, as long as what you did is also quality shit. Then I don't care. Does not, because
Yeah,
there's only so far you can go with rock music. Shit gets repeated all the time.
yeah,
But if it's something that I hear, oh, I've heard that a lot of times. You have to work harder to make this a song that I'm going to fucking care about. But if you can,
yeah.
then kudos to you.
And Passage to Bangkok kicks ass. Twilight Zone, awesome, love it. Has a perfect, mysterious kind of feel to it. Lessons is like this acoustic led rocker that explodes into a majestic chorus. Tears is like a somber 70s rock ballad. And then Something for Nothing, great chorus, great closer, fuck yeah. Need I go further? It's fucking 2112, man.
Yeah,
like
that's an absolute classic
damn.
album. Like any band would be happy to just make this album, but
Mm.
Rush did so much more than this album. So
I find it incredible that a band can have, and at this point I'm filleting the guys really because they've put out so much incredible stuff. Just those three guys and John Rutsey.
yeah, give
Fair.
him some credit. He was there at the beginning.
He needs some love.
Okay,
But yeah, it's awesome.
all right.
Awesome album.
My top two. First thing I'm going to say is these are interchangeable.
Yeah.
Either one of these could be number two or number one, but I'm leaving it as I left it when I said this feels good. I'm walking away from it. But these are my two favorite Rush albums, and to me, they're pretty much right next to each other with how I feel about them. But my number two goes to Hemispheres from 1978,
Cool.
which is their sixth album and the ultimate statement of their prog rock era is Hemispheres. Just the fact that like not only is there a big old track long epic on the first half, but to make it even more proggy, it's a sequel to another song.
Yeah.
Which ended the last album. So that to me is like, that's cool as fuck. And that's another thing that I wish, but why do bands not do that? I don't even think Dream Theater does that. Do they do that? Or they like continue from other albums? Maybe they do. I don't know enough about them.
They've got some songs that link up. They did like 5 albums in a row where they did this thing called the 12-step suite, where it literally each of the 5 albums had at least one track on it that dealt with like at least 2 or 3 of the 12 steps of like the 12-step program that like Portnoy was on.
Yeah.
And like there's riffs that come back in like different variations and stuff, and like the whole thing amounts to like 50 minutes of music.
Interesting.
See that together.
That's interesting. I'm into that. Not really interested in delving into that band. If I'm one day when we do it, I will. But yeah, everything I've heard is just too samey and safe, and that's weird to say about a prog rock band. But yeah, they didn't have an 80s period. Like if Rush had continued, if Rush had made 19 albums that all sounded like 2112, I wouldn't be talking about them the same way that I'm talking about them now. Mm-hmm. But yes, Hemispheres. This like my number one is an album that I went through and every single track I went, this is fucking killer. So second side is Circumstances, The Trees, and La Via Strangiato. Fuck everything when that song comes on. That song in itself is a masterpiece, and it's got that amazing Alex Lifeson solo that just starts kind of, it's very understated and then just gets all crazy, and it's like that is just an example of like why he's such a fucking great guitar player, because there will be these things that he does where you're just like, why don't people talk about him? I mean, Rush fans do, But when they talk about the greatest guitar players, people don't say Alex Lifeson, and they should, because he fucking rules. But this whole album is just, it's got, I just love the fact that like they went as proggy as they could possibly go with this version of proggy. Because when you say proggy, it means progression. And when you get to their next album, like it or not, that's a progression. So this is as much as they could do with what would become the quote unquote template of what prog rock and prog metal is, which has now gotten really fucking boring. But when they did Hemispheres in '78, like that's, I mean, I'm guessing probably every prog band since then, this is, you know, they owe everything to this fucking record. But yeah, to me, it's just got, it's just such a great journey. And to me, I think it betters what they did on 2112, where I think, you know, the big ass epic Cygnus X1 Book 2 Hemispheres, I like that much more than I like 2112. The 3 songs on the second half, I like much better than the songs on the second half of 2112. So it's like, you know, sure, they've done something similar, but I think in all regards, they pushed themselves to the limits of what they could do in this particular album. And they made a perfect 70s prog album that I never get tired of hearing. It is, in my opinion, their 70s masterpiece. It's the best. Like if somebody said, what's the ultimate 70s Rush album? I'd be like, I think Hemispheres is that album. So that's why it's my number 2. So now we've made it. We've made it to number 1.
Number 1, baby. Cool. So here we are, concluding the trilogy.
Oh, wow.
My number 1 Rush album is fucking Moving Pictures, dude.
There you go.
Like, holy shit. Am I right? Like, Tom Sawyer, I don't care how many times I've heard it. I will never get bored of it. It is one of those songs that is immune to overplay. I don't ever tire of hearing Tom Sawyer. Red Barchetta, like you said, awesome. YYZ, or YYZ, as it would be pronounced in the UK.
Oh yeah, sorry.
It's that's okay.
For our cool. European listeners, YYZ.
It's a full-on instrumental prog goodness.
Yeah.
Limelight, probably my favorite Rush song.
It's an absolute classic.
I love Limelight so much, and you know, I sound like such a greatest hits boy right now, but like this album, holy shit.
Plus it's got to me the ultimate Neil Peart line, the I can't pretend a stranger is a long-awaited friend. Because that's so his whole demeanor about being a rock star, like he was nervous and a little embarrassed about it. And he didn't. So whenever you see footage of like meet and greets, he's not there. Because he can't. There's a weird thing where he almost it's almost seemed like he felt like he didn't belong in that world. And
would that come under imposter syndrome or something like that?
It could be. Like... I mean, he's talked about it a lot, and but yeah, I just, or maybe it's just like he doesn't feel deserving of that kind of attention, and it makes him feel embarrassed, which I could totally understand. Like it's like I wouldn't want to, you know, if I was a famous musician, I would feel really weird sitting in a room talking about how great my own shit is. Like I don't know. It would feel very weird. I would be happy to listen to other people talk about it, but like if you want to get me involved and be like, let's talk about something else. It's just not.
I've always. It's kind of like when you're at a birthday party and everybody is singing happy birthday to you, and you're kind of just there for a moment, like,
yes. That is one of the most uncomfortable things in the world. Like, why is it? Why
is it over yet?
Yeah, that is a tradition that I would like to get rid of. Absolutely. That's it's like I feel so awkward, but okay.
I just want to step back here as well. Like it's one of those things where it's like when you look at human evolution, here's a tangent, right? Someone one day turned around and said, "Ah, yes, the calendar says I am once again a year older. I shall bake a cake, put little sticks in the cake, light the sticks in the cake on fire. I will give you the cake. You will blow out the fire, and I will sing you a song." And it's like when you step back and look at this tradition,
it's really weird. There's a lot of weird ass traditions.
It's kind of fucking weird. Like,
yeah. It makes me wonder, like, which part came first? Was it the sweet part that came first? Was it the fire and blowing out the fire that came first? Or was it obviously the song didn't come first, because I think that you celebrated birthdays before that song ever even existed. But also, can you imagine being the person that wrote "Happy Birthday" to you? Like, that's got to be insane to be like, I just wrote this thing and it's just going to live on for eternity.
Yeah, that's a notorious thing to get like copyright.
But you mean that's not public domain now? It's not that old that it should be public domain.
I don't know if she's still alive, but I know that there's a lady that owns the rights to it, and if she hears it, she's like, pay up. I own the rights.
That's rude as fuck. That's like that "Let's Get Ready to Rumble" guy. It's like, go fuck yourself. I'm gonna say "Let's Get Ready to Rumble" whenever I want to.
Oh, shit, we're gonna get so screwed.
I just said it twice. And happy birthday to you. Okay.
Copyright claim in 3, 2, happy.
They're just gonna remove my entire channel. They're just like, fuck this guy. He broke 2 of the biggest rules in 1 minute.
Heck, man, like, going back to the tracks though, like the camera eye, like
meow meow meow. Here's what we can do with technology.
The all new Toyota Corolla.
The future of cars is power windows.
Oh,
later become a Rush album.
Call back. Shit, this shit's getting meta.
That's also copyrighted now, because that's the name of a fucking company.
there's gonna be a moment where humans are gonna turn around and have to start like ending their sentences with like TM, like just be like, yeah, I listened to the Cranked and Ranked TM podcast. And
you can't say anything without paying some money to somebody.
Yeah. Didn't like Gene Simmons once say that he'd trademark the air we breathe if he could?
Probably.
Probably. I'm pretty sure he said that.
I love you. I love Gene. I don't fucking care. He's a very honest person, but in certain ways he's also very smart and have too. So
you ever seen
and creepy and creepy, as we covered in the podcast episodes we did.
Have you ever seen that like really uncomfortable Loudwire interview he did?
No, I don't think so.
Like, and he keeps like dropping that's GeneSimmonsArchive.com. Like, keeps doubling down on the .com like at the end of like whatever it was. I can't remember. It's like it's a fun watch.
I have to find it.
Take a drink every time you cringe. But yeah.
That's related because Rush toured with Aerosmith, with Kiss and Aerosmith. But Kiss, we were just talking about Kiss. My brain is like stuck in all sorts of 70s bands, the 70s band Muck, and I can't get out. All right.
That's a good name for a band, Muck. Yeah, there's plenty of soaring synths and like gorgeously crafted bass and guitar work with a killer drummer underneath it all. Sorry, I had a mild stroke there.
We knew what you meant.
Yeah, Witch Hunt is this spooky, menacing track, and I'll raise my hand and show my age, because the first time I heard this song was actually, you're probably gonna hate this, it was the Machine Head cover on the special edition of Unto the Locust when I was about 13. I will concede.
I don't think I've ever heard that. So
the Rush version is better. um, Vital Signs, very sci-fi rock vibe to it.
Yeah.
Sonically, this is the ultimate middle ground sweet spot of everything Rush does best. It's got heavy riffs, epic synths, both working in kind of tandem with each other. It's kind of state of yin and yang, you know, one without the other. Like, they don't ever fully overpower the other one. It's truly a beautiful masterpiece of accessible progressive rock. And I'm going to tie up my Rush ranking in a cute little bow.
Nice.
It's your turn.
A lot of the things that you were saying, I would actually say applies to my number one, which is Permanent Waves from 1980. So I said it before, like going through with Moving Pictures and Permanent Waves is just like I said with Hemispheres. It is a perfect album. But the reason why I ended up feeling really nice with putting it here at number one is because, sure, it's the first of them sort of moving away and being like, okay, we don't have to do 20-minute tracks anymore. We can start focusing a little bit more on just the actual structure of songs, making them memorable, making them fucking anthems, I guess. I don't think they necessarily intended to. I think a lot of them just ended up that way. But this one, like, sure, if you're coming here for very proggy Rush, you're not getting as much of that here. But I feel like this is the perfect first Rush album for anybody to listen to, because you need to know where they went and where they started. And I think that this is not only a great combination of those things, but also it has some very accessible songs in it too. Get you right into it. Spirit of Radio, Free Will, amazing fucking tracks. But you still get some progginess in there, but you just get nothing but killer shit from beginning to end. You know, like there's nothing I would change about Permanent Waves. Every single track is so fucking perfect. And to me, it's the ultimate Rush album, just because that is, you know, especially if you're going all the way into when Rush started doing what I referred to later as their more middle of the road Rush type stuff in the 90s and beyond. Like, it all kind of starts here. Like, that's where the shift kind of makes to where them going in that direction. But also, you know, this one is still a fucking rock album, and it's still a prog album. It's just got everything in it, but at the same time, just backed up by amazing songwriting. And I feel like between the two of us, these two albums, Permanent Waves and Moving Pictures, like, enough has been said about them and people love them already. I think a lot of people would disagree with them being the top albums. But I think that's just a matter of taste, really.
There's, again, like we said, there's no wrong answers with Rush, really.
Plus, I would also, you know, remind you that I would put this and Hemispheres on equal playing fields, except for, I think, production-wise, Permanent Waves sonically sounds better than Hemispheres. But they're both, you know, that's we're talking back-to-back albums here. Like, you know, they ended the prog era and they started this era. And this is just such a fantastic album. So it's just, you know, you get the absolute stone cold classic go-to Rush songs, but then you also get just this amazingly well-crafted album that is perfect. And so, man, that is, I'm a little sad. I almost don't want to let go. It's like I don't want to let go of Rush, because we've been having a really great time, especially today. But you know what? We did a good job So that means that we gotta let everybody know we're done. And the way we always do that on this show is like this: 3, 2, 1. Yeah, we did it. All right, Rush in the can. That sounds kind of rude, but as in when you're finished filming something and you put it or recording something and you put it in a can. Nobody does that anymore. Now it's just saved to the hard drive.
Sad, man. We need more cans.
So yeah, that's Rush.
Not a can.
That's a water bottle, as you would say in your side of the world.
A water bottle.
A water bottle. What
the letter T doesn't exist.
You dirty fucker. All right.
What a fucking rotter.
So yeah, that was Rush with some fun tangents in there. Like this is, not only was the about the ultimate Rush albums, but also I think the ultimate example of how our podcast can be thoughtful, also ridiculous, but I think all the way through entertaining. Am I wrong, everybody out there? I don't think I am.
We had like major philosophical like epiphanies in the first episode. And by the third, we're pitching to Tom Tanks.
Tom Tanks. Tom Tanks merch coming soon. No, I don't know. Somebody has to design that for me. But speaking of that, peanut butter platypus, to those of you who are here all the time, we love you. And as Eddie said in the beginning of this episode, when we come back next week, we're going to be starting Public Enemy. We're heading back into hip hop, and we're going to be ranking what I consider one of the most important hip hop bands ever. I mean, I say band because there's not really a band, but you know what I mean, groups. That'll be fun, and it's like, we're kind of we like giving everybody some different flavors here. Just no pun intended when I said flavor. But that'll be fun. But yeah, so right now that closes the book on Rush, closes book 2. The
Yo, Chuck, 3. He's shutting the book. Yeah.
All right, so yeah, that's it. That's it. I don't know. This is the weirdest one to say goodbye from, because I feel like, oh, we're now done with this. I feel like we just started it. But yeah, thank you all for listening and for being here. Do you have any final words for our lovely listeners and viewers?
This has been a journey long overdue.
Now we're gonna
the credits roll.
Yeah, we're gonna go to Bangkok and find the best weed we can possibly find.
And pitch Tom Tanks.
Yeah, just Tom Tanks. And Tom Franks.
Yes.
And Tom, thanks for listening.
Yeah! Woo!
All right.
Flawless segue.
On that note, before I ruin it, let's do what we usually do and throw it over to Mr. Eddie Sparxx to take us out.
Have I got any fucking sunglasses on me? Nah, just imagine me with sunglasses on.
Okay.
What you say about his company is what you say about later, dude. Oh my god, the thing came up. It said playing music. The fuck. Zoom came up. Did it recognize that as Geddy Lee?
Wow. I didn't see that at all.
Fuck?
Wow. Apparently you sound just like Geddy Lee. That is wow. Zoom thinks so anyway.
We're totally getting fucking claimed for that.
I hope we don't. If we didn't, then we're gonna end it right here. But otherwise
the whole episode.
It would have ended earlier. I'll just have to cut that part out. But hopefully I don't. All right. That we already said goodbye. Why are you still here? All right, everybody.
Fuck are you doing?